In the Bible, we can find that in the book of Genesis, Adam and Eve were banished from the Garden of Eden. Satan succeeded in deceiving Eve. She disobeyed God and ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, from the tree that God had told them no to eat. Eve incited Adam into eating from the tree also. They disobeyed God, and God cursed the earth. As we can see, the very first rebellion, the rebellion of a third of the angels of heaven, who followed Satan, were banished from heaven, and were casted down to earth, occurred long before the creation of man. But this wasn't the only rebellion of angels. The Bible talks about a second rebellion of angels that decided to disobey God and left their dwelling in heaven. The book of Genesis, chapter 6, tells us the following. The Bible only gives us a little summary of the events that took place when the sons of God, fallen angels, took for wives the daughters of men, and procreated children with them. The so-called Nephilim, that were giants. The word Nephilim comes from the root Nephil, that means fallen ones. The book of Genesis chapter 6 tells us the following. As we just saw, something really bad had to happen after the sons of God procreated children with the daughters of men, the Nephilim. Something else was happening on the earth that made God regretted he had created man, and every single one of the animals on the earth. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord, because he was a just man and perfect, and his generations. Most of us don't pay attention to what the Word of God is really telling us here. The word perfect in Hebrew is tamian, that means without blemish, sound, healthful, without spot, unimpaired. And what this means is that Noah's genealogy didn't have any imperfections. The Bible talks about all this right after the verses where something very strange is happening on the earth. The fallen angels had created a strange form of hybrids and corrupted the seed of man. But Noah was a just man and didn't have any imperfections in his generations. These were the reasons why Noah, his sons, and their wives were chosen by God to start all over again. The Bible doesn't tell us much about the weird events that were happening on the earth. But there is a series of books, like the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and the Book of Jasher, that give us a more extensive recount of the events that took place in Genesis chapter 6. The books of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees are part of the Dead Sea Scrolls that were found between 1947 and 1956, and are considered canonical by the Ethiopian Jews. The Book of Jasher is an ancient Jewish book that is mentioned in the Bible, in the Book of Joshua, and in the Book of Samuel. The Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees were not included in the Bible, but in ancient times they were considered as trustworthy books. Enoch was considered as a true prophet of God by the fathers of the ancient church. The Book of Enoch is also mentioned in the Bible, in the Book of Jude, and in the Book of Peter. These 3 books are considered as very trustworthy historical documents. They give us details about Enoch, his prophetic visions, his interactions with the angels of God, the rebellion of angels, the Watchers, the Nephilim, and all the things they did, and how they corrupted men and all of the animals of the earth. With this very detailed information that the Book of Enoch gives us, we can get to the following conclusions. Number 1. The Book of Enoch talks about many prophetic events, like the second coming of Jesus, the rapture of the saints, the Great Tribulation, the day of the final judgment, heaven, and the lake of fire, thousands of years before the Old and New Testament were even written. We can see that God really gave Enoch vision of the future, and that's why he knows that he will be talking to a distant generation to come, possibly our generation. Number 2. Most people make the mistake of thinking that the angels who followed Satan and were casted down to earth are the same angels that rebelled against God and came down and procreated children with the daughters of men, the Nephilim. But the Bible clearly tells us that there were two separate groups of fallen angels. The group that was led by Satan during the first rebellion, and the group that was led by Samaisa, which Enoch refers to as the Watchers. Two different groups, two different rebellions. Number 3. The Watchers knew that their plans of coming down to earth to procreate hybrids with the daughters of men was a great sin before the eyes of God. The Watchers decided to go through with their plan, and they made a pact to keep prying until their objective was fulfilled: the procreation of the Nephilim. Number 4. The Watchers disclosed many secret things to their wives and sons, the Nephilim. They taught them how to make swords, shields, and breastplates, witchcraft, sorcery, magic, divination, astrology, knowledge of plants and roots. The Watchers had lots of occult knowledge, what is known today as occultism. And with that occult knowledge and technology, they corrupted mankind. Number 5. The Nephilim. The descendants of the Watchers were giants. The Hebrew word Jabborim, in Genesis chapter 4, that describes the Nephilim, was translated as mighty men, when it should say, mighty giants. The Nephilim were known as Azuras in the Hindu culture, Jotnars, or frost giants in the Norse mythology, and Titans in the Greek mythology, that share the same cannibalistic behavior and taste for blood. Most of the Nephilim were destroyed by the flood, but not all of them. The Rephaim and the Anakim are an example of this. Number 6. In the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jasher, we can find that the Watchers gave occult knowledge to their sons, the Nephilim. They took from the cattle of the earth, the beast of the field, and the fowls of the air, and taught them the mixture of animals of one species to the other, among many other things, in order therewith to provoke God. This explains very clearly the reason why God wanted to destroy man and every single one of the animals and beasts on the earth. Genetic manipulation. We can see many examples of this in the ancient Greek mythology. Number 7. Azazel was chained and thrown into a pit in the desert. The pit was then covered over with sharp rocks, and he was covered with darkness. Samaisa and the rest of the Watchers were bound for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth, until the day of the great judgment, when they shall be cast into the fire. This is one of the two groups of fallen angels that the Bible talks about. Satan and the third of the angels that were cast down to earth were not bound. We can see the second group of fallen angels taking the forms of many so-called extraterrestrials and ascended masters, deceiving mankind. Number 8. The spirits of the hybrid abominations, called the Nephilim, that were destroyed in the flood, became the disembodied spirits that we know today as demons. They like to impersonate dead people during seances. pretend to be ascended masters and extraterrestrials during channeling sessions, and they are always looking for a body to inhabit. What are we seeing in the world today? Genetic modification. Spider goats. Goat cow chimeras. Fluorescent fish. Fluorescent rats. Featherless chickens. The super cow. Cows that produce human milk. And soon, something like this. As we all know, it is not longer a secret that the United States government has been constructing deep underground military bases, or what is known as dumps. They have been quietly preparing for something very major, some kind of cataclysmic event or invasion, stocking these bases with massive amounts of food, water, and supplies. They have even developed means to grow crops inside of these facilities. They have very advanced systems of tunnels and transportation. What are they preparing for? What are they not telling us? In the year of 1979, Phil Snyder, geologist and engineer, who worked for 17 years in black budget projects such as Area 51, S4, and Los Alamos, witnessed a series of strange events during the construction of one of this deep underground military bases. He was one of only 3 survivors of the infamous alien-human war at Dulce, New Mexico.
I was involved in building another base inside of Dulce, New Mexico, which is Los Alamos Laboratory. It's a biological laboratory. On the southwest part of the Archuleta Mesa, we built an underground facility, a better part of 3 cubic miles hollowed out underground. We were in the process of the early stages of building. We drilled 4 large tunnel-like holes. Some of them ran 2.5 miles under the surface. The equipment kept coming up broken. So we wanted to go down, we wanted to send somebody down there, a human observer, or human observers in this case, to find out what was going on. Well, to our total surprise, first of all, the government knew all about it. They didn't tell anybody. When I saw Green Beret and Black Beret people encamped inside of our geologist camp, I knew something was up. The large alien grays had been encamped there for as best as believed possible about 400 or 500 years. Had been one of their internal bases. And we'd drilled holes right on top of it. In this process, I was lowered down the basket of one of these holes, and about from me to this elderly woman here in the front was sitting a 7-foot-tall alien gray. The stench was worse than the worst garbage can you can imagine. The person was the entity was absolutely horrible. You got a regular clothes on, plus you're in almost like a spacesuit environment, and you're reaching for a gun. It's not the easiest thing to do, and then to pop a clip in it and start shooting. And I killed 2 of them. Yes, they're mortal, and they do die. One of them did this. All I remember is that he just kind of waved his hand in front of his chest, and the next thing I know, this blue beam hit me and just literally opened me up like a fish. and burnt my fingers right off of me. And it was some form of electrical force, because the kind of like being hit by a lightning bolt burned all my toenails off of me. Completely crispy crittered my left foot. A Green Beret that was right behind me that risked his life. In fact, he died. But he risked his life. He shoved me back in the basket and hit the button and took me up. And I wouldn't be alive talking to you today if it wasn't for him. I'm forever indebted. He lost his life. 66 Secret Service agents, Green Berets, Black Berets, crack troops lost their lives because the government, our United States government, lied, did not tell us anything about the alien threat. There's a war underneath there, and I'm talking dead serious.
The Bible tells us, in the book of Revelation, Amos, and Isaiah, the following. Are these beings, the watchers that were bound inside the bellies of the earth by God? Are we living in the last days? NASA warns people of a possible alien invasion. Reptilians. Nordics. Greys. Entities that abduct people and want to create hybrids.